Florida civics curriculum will incorporate foundational concepts with the best materials, and it will expressly exclude unsanctioned narratives like critical race theory and other unsubstantiated theories. Let me be clear, there's no room in our classrooms for things like critical race theory. Teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer money. So we will invest in actual, solid, true curriculum, and we will be a leader in the development and implementation of a world-class civics education.
A world-class civics education. This is what Florida is on a pathway to now, thanks to Governor Ron DeSantis in public schools. That's right. People should learn the truth about how government works, how their country works, and we shouldn't allow for this brain rot of critical race theory to continue to spread all across campuses, all across not just high school, but now grade school, grammar school curriculum. Ron DeSantis is increasingly feeling like the leader of the Republican Party. I know that Donald Trump still holds for a lot of people, holds the reins of the GOP's future. But Ron DeSantis is showing with his actions, Ron DeSantis is accomplishing with his results so much that at this point you have to figure that he's a likely 2024 presidential candidate. But it's even more than that. He's creating a template for other states to follow, because now with the Democrats in control of the House and a de facto majority in the Senate, what we see, and of course the White House under Biden, who everyone's realized now really is just a pass-through for the left-wing agenda. I mean, it's the Obama administration with Biden as a puppet, right? Biden just sort of shuffles around. Yeah, I sort of just say some things, and then I kind of say things like this. And I come down here, and I read the speech, and I mumble some stuff. And then I say some things kind of loud so you think I'm still awake. And then I mumble some more stuff. And I pretend to be a great leader because, I'm Joe Biden. Yeah. People are figuring out what this was all about. It's exactly what I told you it would be, so you're not surprised at all. But we need states to step up and show a better way forward. You'll notice that it's also Florida that has taken the lead in trying to create protections for people from social media companies effectively defrauding them. These companies were built on the back of a promise. The promise was that you'd be able to share information, you'd be able to use their platforms without respect to your politics, that they were platforms for the free exchange of ideas, that they were First Amendment defenders, that they were nonpartisan, non-political. That's an absolute lie. And it is shifting our national conversation about every issue on a day-to-day basis. And if we don't tackle this, we'll lose. If we don't change this, we cannot win the future. It will already be decided for us. And this is also why critical race theory in schools, we are paying attention to this now, because you see that the left has a need for an overarching narrative of hysteria. The left is defined by a widespread psychological defect right now of overwhelming fear from things that are either a minimal risk or a very limited challenge, very limited threat against them. I mean, the big example is white supremacy, which I'll be talking to you more about. As you know, the term white supremacy, if you just look for a Google search of white supremacy use in the media 10 years ago versus now, it's just taken off like a rocket ship. This has become a narrative. And what they've done is, just like in the 90s when racism was used as a club to beat people that you didn't agree with politically and on the right generally, but also to keep people on your own side in line, right? If you're a liberal, now leftist is I think the more appropriate term, so I'll use that one in place of. If you are a leftist and you step out of line, they sometimes will feed their own to the mob. They'll feed their own to the wolves in order to show just how woke they are. This is a mechanism of control. It's a mechanism of achieving power and of control. And critical race theory is an indoctrination. In fact, I wrote my college thesis at Amherst in part about Herbert Marcuse and critical race theory and the way that it was used to justify campus speech codes, which have been around for a long time. But the campus speech codes were an early indicator at colleges and universities of where we were heading. We were going to a place, it's where we are now. You say things I don't like, that's basically violence. Speech equals violence. That took decades to create that perception, to create the groundwork so that it would finally take root. And we were warning about it. We're saying, look at how insane they are at Harvard, at Yale, at Michigan State, at Mizzou, at Reed College, at UCLA. I mean, you go all over the country, UT Austin. Look at how crazy some of this stuff on campus is. But because we are conservatives, because we're people that don't sit around constantly terrified about everything all the time, we said, okay, they'll grow out of it. I think that was our attitude. They'll grow out of it. They'll recognize that this is foolish. They'll recognize this doesn't make sense. And now we live in a society where we see, oh, no, they didn't grow out of it. And in fact, they run some of the most important, they have seized some of the commanding heights of our culture, of politics, of the economy, of corporations, of the nodes of control. Sure, half the country can be Republican and half the country is by party affiliation, roughly speaking. But if they control the corporations, Hollywood, the news media, not just college campuses now, law schools. I mean, international relations school, I can tell you, because I've actually done some study at them, are basically like communist enclaves. I mean, they're completely insane. And to get a master's in international affairs, it means you're effectively, they're creating a stooge to go work for the UN and who thinks that America's really bad. All these other countries do great things for the world. America's really bad. But if they control all these things, and then they also control the credentialing institutions, so then it becomes we're just the smarter people. We're just smarter than you are. No, it's just because you create the reality on these campuses of the people that you want. You decide that you're in a place that you can create a socially engineered future of this country. And that's what they've done. And critical race theory is essential in that. Critical race theory is a major component of this. It's the view, if you were to just look up a definition of it, that law and legal, this from Britannica.com, law and legal institutions are inherently racist, and that race itself, instead of being biologically grounded and natural, is a socially constructed concept that are used by white people to further their economic and political interests at the expense of people of color. According to critical race theory, racial inequality emerges from the social, economic, and legal differences that white people create between races to maintain elite white interests in labor markets and politics, give rise to poverty and criminality in many minority communities, and giving rise to. The CRT movement officially organized itself in 1989 at the first annual workshop on critical race theory, though its intellectual origins go back much further to the 1960s and 1970s. I mentioned to you that I had studied Herbert Marcuse back when I was in college, which now is about almost 20 years ago. And he is somebody who, his ideas, his view of a society in which everyone is constantly competing with each other. I mean, he's basically a Marxist, and he's a cultural or a social Marxist, although Marx believed in his theories, of course, affecting every aspect, every facet of society, including family relations, including relations between husband and wife. Marx didn't think there was just some solely economic rationale for everything. It wasn't just an economic interest. It was all of society. But this belief system, you'll notice that they really got it going on campuses officially in the 1990s, which is also when you saw the rise of PC culture. PC culture was the precursor to cancel culture. PC culture led to everything is racist. Racism is the reason for all these problems in society. Even if you don't do something or you yourself are not racist, You are a part of a racist system. Therefore, you are furthering racism by your very existence, unless you are, of course, not white, or you are somebody who agrees with all of our doctrine. Oh, and actually, if you're a minority who doesn't agree, they will take away your minorityness. They will say that you don't really count. This is how the left has created a perception that, Justice Thomas, for example, is not really representative in some way of the black community. And they'll say really horrible things to that end, but that's what they'll say. Critical race theory is the wellspring for so much of our social misery and despair and so much of what tears us apart. And it undermines foundational concepts of what this American experiment is all about, that we are individuals alike in, equal in dignity and grace and made in the image of God. That is all cast aside with this notion that wherever we are, whoever you are, your individual actions, your decency, your character, your ethics don't matter. You're part of a collective, a racial collective, and you have to either make amends or demand amends, depending on where you are, and also be relieved of any individual responsibility. Notice that this is all just a way of shifting power dynamics. People aren't responsible for their own life, for their own actions. It's the collective, it's society. And you can either pay obedience to this, you can either make amends for this, or you can be one of the bad people. You can be somebody that is called out. You can be somebody who is considered a part of the problem. You must be not just non-racist, but anti-racist. This all comes from critical race theory. And this is pulling the country apart. It is toxic. And I'm very happy to see that there are some states that are finally saying enough is enough. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.